So it's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren. Frank, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
I'm very good, thanks, mate. Yeah, doing well. We had
Good.
the press conference, obviously, just 2 days ago for Tyson
Yeah.
Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, their rematch. Must be the
Yeah.
first time you've been up close and personal with Tyson in a while. What did you make of him? How do you think he looked?
I think, well, he looks good. I mean, flew off to camp yesterday and he's gone to sunnier climes for preparation for the fight. And he's mentally, he's in really good shape. You know, he's really up for this. He really wants this fight.
Now, Tyson, of course, revealed at the press conference that he experienced a family tragedy just 2 days before the first Usyk fight. He, insisted he wasn't using it as an excuse or anything like that, but he did publicly share the sad news of the miscarriage that his wife, Paris, had suffered merely days before the fight. First of all, did you know about it before the fight, or were you hearing about it for the first time when we did?
Well, I knew there was a problem at the time because she's always there for all of his fights. She's always ringside and she wasn't there. And I didn't sort of really get into it with him because, fighters on fight week, certainly a couple of days before a fight, they're normally, you know, you don't want to, well, you just don't want to upset, you don't want to be upset by anything. And obviously I was unaware what the problem was. And obviously it was a tragedy and a terrible situation. But as he said, he's not looking for an excuse. I think he's just saying, what it was. Well, I don't know it even came out because he was sitting in, we done our interviews and then he was sitting down with a couple of journos and said what was what.
Do you think if you'd known the specifics of what was wrong at the time, you'd have pulled him out or asked him about it?
Oh, obviously I'd have asked him about it, and at the end of the day, it'd have been his choice. It would have been his choice, and he made his choice anyway. He did what he had to do. As I say, it was the background to that is quite it's quite sad, but that's not to take anything away from Usyk and Alexander in his performance or Tyson's. I mean, you know it was an unbelievable fight, wasn't it? It was a cracking fight. It was just a really really keenly fought, closely fought um, unification for all the belts. It was the first time in the 21st century we'd seen that happen, and it lived up to everything. Just and you got to think Tyson done extremely well considering what was going on in the background. The awful things that were happening.
When you heard what he had to say at the press conference, did you wish he had have told you back then?
Oh yeah, I would like to have known, to be quite honest. But look, that's family, it's personal, and and that's between him and his wife, and that's and I don't want to intrude on that. That's for them, and they dealt with a, they have their ways of dealing with things and deal with it how they're very close, and they got a great relationship. They got 7 kids, and so they dealt with it as a family, and that's it. And it's not, I couldn't have added anything. All I could have been is somebody who probably expressed some sympathy and so forth. But what could I do? There's nothing I could do about what happened.
We obviously all extend our sympathies to Fury and Paris and the family. Now we know what went on. Um, just want to ask you, Tyson made quite a big thing at the press conference about his success in rematches. Every rematch he's had, he's stopped the opponent. How much can you read into that as a general kind of rule going into the Usyk rematch?
Well, that's what's happened. I mean, that's a fact. He's not making it up. That's a fact. I mean, you look at that first fight he had with Deontay, which was given a draw, again, a debatable thing, but weren't for me. I think everybody thought he won, except for probably, you know, whoever that judge was, that terrible judging. But look, the thing about Tyson, he's a great student of boxing. He knows his boxing. He's not a one trick pony. He's not like he relies on a big punch. He can punch. He can box. He's got a lot of things going for him, and more importantly, he reads fighters well. And sharing a ring, both of those guys are both unbelievable fighters. Sharing a ring with each other, they're obviously going to look at it and think, you know, I know what his weakness is. I'm going to exploit it better next time, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's who can put it into practice. And what Tyson has done in the past is to go out there and show what he's made of. And certainly in the second fight he had with Deontay, I mean, he schooled him and knocked him out. And the second fight he had with Derek Chisora, it was one way traffic. So he's done that on occasions, and you know, he knows what he's got to do. He knows better than I. I mean, the only thing, if you had anything that you was going to say about the fight, what could go wrong is if he can't do it. He knows what he's got to do, but can he do it? And I think he can do it.
And a lot was made at the time on the first fight about the corner and the atmosphere there. Spencer Brown came out a few weeks after and said there will be no changes in terms of the personnel going into the rematch. But we haven't seen Tyson's dad, Big John Fury, publicly since the fight. He's made no real comment about it either. Should we read much into that?
I won't read anything into anything. I mean, look, Tyson's a, what's he now? 35 years of age. He's not an idiot. He knows what needs to be done, and not just he knows. John knows. The corner know, and they'll do the right thing. And and you learn from fight. John's his dad, and I see Shane Shane said a couple of things. I see a couple of interviews. His brother Shane, who's a very, Shane, very smart. And he said some things, and they're quite true. His dad was in the corner, certainly in that ninth round. What, as a parent, as a face your boy in there, of course you're going to be concerned. And, but that Tyson knows that he's got to change a couple of things that he did in the first fight. Just tinker with them, nothing really specific. He knows he's got to do that. And the corner know that next time what they're going to do. And I'm confident about them because, that fight was a split decision. No matter which way you want to look at it. And one judge gave it to Tyson, two judges gave it to Oleksandr, and one of the judges that give it to him. If that ninth round hadn't happened, Tyson would have won the fight on that judge's scorecard. But it did happen. And, we're not going to change any of that. So, the truth of the matter is that that's gone, done, finished with, move forward now, and there'll be some tweaking, and it'll go from there. Tyson's knows what he's got to do. He knows better than you, better than anybody. You know why he knows better? Because he's the guy who's taken the punches, and he's an intelligent boxer.
Was there ever any talk of the rematch being delayed and Tyson instead fighting Anthony Joshua?
No.
That was never a consideration.
Tyson wouldn't have done that. He wanted the rematch.
And Eddie Hearn was saying, I think it was yesterday, he's thinking about whether to put Anthony Joshua in with the rematch with Daniel Dubois. And he said, well, if we do that and then Fury wins in December, we could be risking the biggest fight of all time, Joshua and Fury. What do you make of that?
Well, Eddie's got his opinion, and what he's got to do, he's speaking on behalf of his man. Daniel Dubois, by the way, he's not going to be sitting around waiting for AJ. That ain't going to happen. He is the world champion, and he won it in absolute style. But the rematch is there if he wants it. But like all things, there comes a time where if it's not done quickly, then we move on to the next thing.
And with that in mind, if you were advising Joshua, obviously he's Eddie's fighter, but if you had Joshua, what would you be advising him to do next?
Credibility-wise, to do the rematch.
But it was a very kind of conclusive defeat. Would you think that an immediate rematch he could? I mean, obviously you've got the Dubois, so you have to put that out of your mind for this question, but would you in Joshua's camp think he could put it right?
I don't think he can put it right. I don't think he can put it right if he does the rematch tomorrow, next year, or the year after. He's got his number.
So if he goes into a rematch with Dubois and loses in a similar fashion as the first time, is that a Joshua Fury fight completely off the table, do you think?
Well, it depends how, if he loses like that. I mean, look, he went yeah, both those fighters, both of them, both Daniel and Anthony, both went into that fight coming off of good wins and good form lines. And what happened. He re-established that form line. I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty conclusive defeat, but he suffered from. And and he shouldn't. I'm not being rude and I'm being patronising. And he's got nothing to be. He hasn't got to prove anything to anybody. He did. He went in there and he certainly tried to come out. He said, didn't he, in that fifth round? I think it was at the start. He came out and said, "Was it going to roll the dice or shit or bust, whatever it is?" So that's what he came out to do, and caught him with a couple of good shots. Caught him a brilliant, big shot before he got caught with the counter.
If we never see Fury Joshua, how much of a loss is that for British boxing?
Well, it's one we'd all like to have seen, wouldn't we? Who knows? We don't know. But, before all that can happen, we've got to see what happens on the 21st of December and the Riyadh season. We get another great card, great fight, and we'll see how those two guys come through it. For me, I genuinely do believe that it's going to be I think it's going to be a bit. I do believe Tyson will win the fight. Of course, I'd say that because I'm in his corner, but I do believe he'll win the fight.
And Tyson's not been undisputed, of course, because of the way the belts have since fragmented. He won't have that opportunity on December 21st. You've said before you wouldn't be completely comfortable with making your two fighters, Fury and Dubois, against each other. Has that changed at all?
No, not at all, because it's a tough fight. As I'm quite close to them both, and they're at different stages. Obviously, if they're different ages, different stages. But that'd be their choice. If it's a big fight, which it is a big fight, if that ever come on, it's up to them to make their mind up if they want to do it. What am I going to do? And I'll be sitting there like, as a fan, probably loving every minute of it, but knowing them both of them, you don't. I want to see the guys I'm involved with. But it has happened in the past, and we've done it. We've done it in the past, made fights happen
How
between
long?
guys.
How long does Joshua have to take up a rematch with Dubois before you move on and look at
Well,
other
there's no rematch clause there at all.
No.
It's up to him if he wants to do it. The offer was there,
But
but
how
the
long
offer,
will you give him?
I'm sure within the next 4 or 5 days, week, the decision is going to know what he wants to do. That's up to him.
And if he doesn't, what are the other options that you'd like for Dubois?
Well, we're looking at a couple of things if that's the case, but I'm not going to go into that yet because obviously we're going to have to negotiate with people and work things out, and I don't want to be doing that, talking about them until we get it sorted.
All right, well, let's go around some other topics away from the main heavyweight champions. Got a press release about an hour ago before we did this interview, so I'm glad we delayed it a little bit. You guys have signed Lawrence Okolie, former two-weight world champion, now campaigning at heavyweight. Just tell us how that came about.
It came about because he sees where the heavyweight actions are happening. That's how it came about. Look, he'd be a good addition to the scene. There's no doubt about that. He's coming up 2 times world champion, the same as Usyk did, same as David Haye did. See if he can make an impression on that division. Now, it's years ago Evander Holyfield did. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, where he is. But he definitely wants to. Well, he is going to compete at heavyweight, and he'll be a great addition to all the fights that are going on. We've got some great heavyweight fights. We're going to announce 2 in the next week. Really, what everyone's going to like. Real competitive heavyweight fights, and obviously we'll be announcing in due course Mr. Okolie's next fight.
We might end up talking about a couple of those in due course, but in terms of Okolie, he's had a fair bit of criticism throughout his career so far in terms of not being the easiest on the eye, not always being a crowd pleaser. Is that something that enters your mind when you go into negotiations?
Yeah, sometimes you do that, but you look what he brings to the table is he is a 2-time world champion. He's competing at a big weight, so it's out there for him to go and show what he's all about. And if he gets in, he can get in a fight and change everybody's perspective around. People were talking about Daniel Dubois a year ago like it was all over. young
He was
man.
always exciting though, Dubois, even
Well,
in
he's
the ring.
always been. I agree with that. He's always been exciting. He's never been in a boring fight at all. He's always been in exciting fights. But let's see what he does. Let's see what he does. In the campaigning at heavyweight. For me, it's what you do in the ring, and he's got a great opportunity now because he'd be involved in some good fights.
Now, you mentioned some heavyweight fights about to be announced. There's been a lot of rumours over the last week or two that Derek Chisora will be fighting Big Baby Miller at the end of the year in London. Is that still on the table? Is that likely?
He's not. He won't be fighting this year.
Okay. But it could happen.
Hang on, let me kill this.
No, no worries.
Sorry, mate. Go
Yeah,
on.
so it won't be this year, but it could happen Chisora against Miller.
I'd like to see that fight. I think that's quite an exciting fight between them two. I'd love to see that.
And another one, Zhilei Zhang, a while ago now, spoke to us and said he's opted to take his rematch clause against Joseph Parker. When are we likely to see that one?
Well, we're going to be making some announcements, as I said earlier, in the next couple of weeks with the shows we got coming up and the dates we got coming up. And there's some more exciting news next week as well with what we're doing. So some
Right.
really exciting news. So yes, it's good times. I mean, Queensbury at the moment, we're doing okay.
What about Joe Joyce? We haven't heard much about his future since the defeat to
Joe fight
Chisora.
this year. Joe fight this year.
What sort of level, you don't obviously not going to tell me the opponent, but what sort of level can we expect him to come back at?
High level. He's got to come back. He's got to re-establish himself.
Yeah, I know. We just after the Zhang defeats, obviously he came back against Cash Ali before Chisora, didn't he? So I thought maybe that sort of
Yeah.
level again first, but no.
And then we got there's a fight that we're looking at which we think is quite a it's it'd be a good fight, I promise you.
Okay, interesting. We saw reported yesterday Hamza Shiraz negotiation period with Janibek for the world title. No deal has been reached. Apparently, it was reported Shiraz's team, presumably you, have asked for an extension to the negotiation period, but it's up to Janibek's team whether they agree to it. What's the latest on that?
Well, that's correct. The WBO convention starts end of next week, so we'll see what happens whilst whilst we're out there.
And if
But
no deal
yeah,
is reached, it will just go to purse bids, presumably.
that is what normally the procedure is. Yeah.
And you're well known for getting home advantage for your fighters in just these type of fights. Any extra pressure to dig into the pocket and make sure it ends up
Yeah, of
here?
course there is. I mean, of course there is. I mean, yeah, but you got to remember when you're the challenger, you're on 20%.
Yeah, good point. But then surely maybe it ends up in Saudi and they both make a lot of money.
Maybe, I hope they do make a lot of money, so, but let's see what happens. There's a lot of things could happen and may happen. We'll see where it goes.
Now, talking of Saudi, this Monday marks the 1 year anniversary of Riyadh season boxing.
Yeah,
The first card was, yeah, a year ago on Monday with Tyson against Ngannou. What would you sum up as the biggest positives or the biggest changes that Riyadh season in boxing has brought?
I think His Excellency in Riyadh season has changed the whole dynamic of the sport. We're getting, we've had some good unifications out there. We've had fighters come through. For example, I use Daniel Dubois and Nick Ball as an example, who have come through, taken advantage of their fights out there and firmly established themselves as being world class fighters in their respective divisions. And a lot of that is because of them, because we were able to make the matches, some of those matches, because of the finance involved, because of the dynamic of the Riyadh season, which is a multicultural it is, it's a multicultural event over a period of time, nearly 6 months, with events, not just boxing, all different sports, entertainment, exhibitions, all sorts of things that are there to show that this is a destination. Riyadh season, Riyadh is a destination for world-class events from all around the world, not just the Western world, all around the world. And as a result of that, some of the finances have been made available, enable us to make some really, really great fights. And the fact that His Excellency is such a major, major boxing fan and loves every minute of it has been a big bonus for us. So out of it in the last 12 months, what's happened? Everybody's done well out of it. Fighters have done well. We've done well as promotions. Everybody's made good money. We're all professionals. We've made money. The media have had great stories to write about. Um, it's been brilliant, and most importantly, the fans have seen some brilliant fighters and fights. It's been a revelation. It's been revelation. And what's happened in the last world, I think the bottom line of it is the real major boxing capital of the world for the big fights, where the funding came from, was mostly Vegas for the big fights. Taking apart what we've done, what we do at Wembley with the big gates and that, but mostly at Vegas, and it's taken over. Riyadh has become the world capital of boxing, and doing the Riyadh season special events, the one in LA was a phenomenal event with all the great fights that were on that card, and the one at Wembley broke all box office records for any event to take place at Wembley. So it's all been pluses, all plus, all great fights, all entertaining. Just been brilliant.
Now, those comments, I think a lot of people would agree with. They do come into contrast a little bit with your good friend Bob Arum, who has been criticizing some of the Riyadh season stuff. Before we get onto his specific comments, he claims that Riyadh season cards going forward will only take place in Saudi
I'm not
Arabia.
going to go there with that, Dan. How would he know that? He doesn't know that, and I don't know why he said that. How would he know that?
And his specific criticism of the LA show, he called it a financial flop. What you've just said, it was a great event. Obviously, I'm assuming you mean to watch as a
What you see, the thing is about this is this is where there are different agendas. Okay, the agenda for what takes place is about selling Riyadh and Riyadh season. So the money they put into the event, they feel is money well spent to promote Riyadh. And it's done that because all anybody talks about now is boxing. I want to fight in Saudi. I want to fight in Riyadh. And it works. So, that's it. And, I wish Bob hadn't said that, but he said it. He said what he said. And it's bollocks, for want of a better expression. Riyadh season has been a tremendous success for the boxers. Ask the fans. They're the ones who matter. Ask the fans. Ask everybody who's involved in it. Has it been great? Have they enjoyed it? And the answer to it is yes. I mean, look at the fight we had a couple of weeks ago, the unification fight. He had a fighter on there, Better Biev on there. Without Riyadh season, what money would Better Biev and Bivol have got for that fight? When would it have even taken place? Would they have got it together? No, but they got it together through His Excellency and his offices and Riyadh season. That made that fight happen. He made it happen and paid them big money for that fight. The money that, we're going to ask the guys what they feel about it. Hopefully they're going to dance again. But that is a fact of life. And it's just, for me, all this some of this negative stuff is ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. I mean, how can nobody not be entertained what they see, what they're seeing? I mean, it's just great fights. I'm delighted for us. I'm delighted for the boxers that I'm involved with, and I'm delighted for boxers we've not been involved with. I'm delighted that out of Riyadh season, somebody I've never ever spoke to before, with Eddie, that we're working together on making fights happen. We've got a great show next week. Matchroom against Queensbury against Matchroom again. That top of the bill, Liam and Masood. That is a cracker of a fight. Would that have happened if it hadn't been for a Riyadh season? I doubt it, because we couldn't get nothing on before. So the truth of the matter, it's all been pluses. It's all been ticks all the way through. I'm delighted that, Ben Shalom put some of his fighters in rather than pulling them out of purse, but we actually made some fights. And I'm more delighted that my guys showed him what it's all about.
Talking of Ben Shalom, I'm not going to call him your good friend, unlike Eddie and Bob Arum and myself. What is the latest regarding that? I think you asked for a public apology, or else, I guess, which
It's being dealt with. I'm not going into it anymore now. It will be dealt with. And, you should ask how he feels about it, the man it was directed against. Fabio, I see an interview and he was very succinct. He was very articulate, saying what the position was. And I agree with that entirely. That's my point as well. But look, it is what it is, and we will deal with that the same as we would deal with a Eubank situation.
Is it disappointing in the sense that you're trying to work with these people, same as you've forged a relationship with Eddie, and stuff like this kind of gets in the way of that working relationship?
Well, don't get away. It's about egos, and everybody's got an ego. I get that, but what the structure is, just so you understand, it's Riyadh season are not promoters.
Sure.
Okay, it is what it is. It's a brilliant, brilliant concept. Putting on events from around the world. Just put a tennis tournament on with the 6 top tennis players just been on. They got a UFC. They got WWF on. They got all these things happening. You know, brilliant events, and boxing's been part of it. For the boxing, as I say, they're not promoters. It is what it is. It's a Riyadh season. My seller are partners with Queensbury, and Queensbury are licensed boxing promoters, and we are the licensed promoter and responsible for putting and spare responsibility for making sure the event runs smoothly, and all the rules of the commission that are in charge of the event, which was the British Boxing Board of Control, that we make sure everything's done properly, because we are liable for that. So some twat coming out and saying some of the things he said is inference that we didn't do that. And any of the other promoters on there, and it's contrary to what certain broadcasters say, it's a three promoters. It's not. There's been 12, 13, 14 different promoters working on these shows together at various times from all around the world. K2 are on the next fight on the 21st. K2 promotion, Gypsy King, Gold Star, all different people working on these shows. So that's how it is. And for someone who's again said something stupid, it takes away from the event, what that event was. That was a brilliant night for boxing. We see the 4 belts on the line. I picked Better Beer going into the fight. I picked him, but I thought Bivol just nicked it. So that's how I see the fight. But it was a close fight again, and it was a great fight. And as I say, I hope they do it again. And the undercard was a really good quality undercard, and Fabio done a brilliant job. And to be suddenly taken away from what he did to some idiot talking nonsense about what he talked about gloves, and it's just unacceptable. It's wrong and it's stupid. And I don't know why they do it. It's like, where are your brains? If you've got any brains, that is.
So then in the future, just to end on this bit, if there's a fight you want to make with a boxer fighter, if you're going through a court issue with Ben Shalom, does that get in the way?
No, not necessarily. I mean, whatever's going to be done is going to be done. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to a stage with a few fights where the Border Control would try to force the issue, and he pulls his fights out.
Do you feel like he
That's,
should have
that,
just
that, and he's done that
apologised
on
in the
numerous
same way
occasions.
Eubank Jr. did?
Yeah, I think he owes a big apology to Fabio for what he said, and I think he owes an apology to us because we were responsible for what happened. The gloves for the show were sent in by the respective boxers' glove manufacturer. They sent to us in sealed bags, 2 sets of gloves, one for the fight and one spare set. They are given to the inspector on the day of the fight for the rules meeting. They go to the rules meeting. Both sides check the gloves. They can make any objections, which they did. Say they didn't like the gloves, but they were told that the flyer are on the Border Control approved list. And Robert Smith, who was there, he's the general secretary, said there's no problem with these gloves. And he's an ex-fighter, by the way.
Of course, yeah.
He said there's no problem on these gloves. And then these gloves were then handed back to the inspector, who brought them into the dressing room the next day at the fight. And they were all signed as well. Brought them in the next day. They put their gloves up. They then stay with them. The inspector stays with them until they leave the dressing room. He sits there. He watches them wrap their hands, as does a representative from the other camp, the opponent's camp. He then signs his signature on the tape, and then they glove up. Again, there's a representative there, but the inspector's there. They then tape up the lace part of the glove, and he signs that. They go to the ring. When they get in the ring, the first thing you see the referee do, he looks at both the fighters' gloves before the boxing commences. That is what happened.
If Ben apologises, would you put it to
Do
bed?
you know what, Ben? It's not that. I don't want to keep speaking about fucking Ben Shalom. It's irrelevant. I've told you what's happened. If he wants to apologise, he can apologise. If he don't want to apologise, we'll deal with it a different way. But that is how it is. I don't want to keep going on about this garbage. It is pathetic nonsense. We're taking away a great night's fight. We're taking away what Fabio. That's what we should be talking about, not this negative shit all the time. What is it with people? Should be happy, should be delighted. What I know he ain't happy because his fighter got beat and the other one fell over the rope. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, why are we going on about all this crap? It's crap. You know, can I get my face on TV? Where's my seat? Why am I not sitting? I want to be in front of the camera. Who cares about all that garbage? It's garbage.
All right, well, let's end on a more positive note, or positive from your point of view. Tell people what happens on December 21st in the main event.
I think we're going to get a cracking fight, and I think the guys know each other. They've shared a ring, and they produced an epic contest last time, and it was a very close fight. And as we've said, you know, people got their views who won, who didn't. Come some people who said it was a draw, but the facts of the matter, it was a great fight, and it was a fight of two halves, in my opinion. And I believe that Tyson will prevail, and I believe he will do a job on the 21st.
Great stuff. Frank, really appreciate the time as always. Have a great weekend. Except for
And you,
on
mate?
Sunday where I'm hoping Liverpool turn you over.
No, we're going to kick your ass on Sunday.
I will see. Cheers, Frank. Take care.
See you, Dan. Have a good weekend, mate.
And you,
Bye.
mate. Bye bye.